The auditorium buzzed with excitement, the sound of proud parents, relatives, and classmates filling the air as the graduating students filed into their seats. Ethan sat alone, tucked into the corner of the second row, his tailored suit fitting perfectly, but his expression carrying the weight of someone who had no one to celebrate with. His presence seemed almost out of place among the clusters of families holding flowers, balloons, and banners. He clasped his hands together and watched quietly, his sharp eyes fixed on the stage, though his thoughts were miles away. The CEO who had conquered boardrooms and turned failing companies into empires looked small in that moment, like a man stripped of his armor, carrying only silence. Liana adjusted the floral scarf draped over her shoulders, her daughter Marisol bouncing on her toes with an enthusiasm that lit up the air around them. The young girl tugged on her mother's sleeve, pointing toward the corner where Ethan sat. "Mom, why is that man sitting all by himself?" she whispered, her eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of concern. Liana followed her gaze and caught sight of him, the perfectly dressed man whose sadness seemed to radiate louder than the surrounding cheers. She wanted to dismiss it and refocus her daughter's attention on Camille, her niece, who was about to walk across the stage, but Marisol's persistence left her little choice. "Maybe he just wants some quiet," she murmured, but Marisol shook her head, her ponytail bouncing. "No, Mom. He looks lonely. He should sit with us." Before Liana could protest, Marisol had already wriggled past her, her small feet pattering across the floor. She stopped directly in front of Ethan, her little voice rising with innocent boldness. "Excuse me, sir," she said, "you don't have to sit alone. You can come sit with me and my mom. We saved a spot." Ethan blinked in surprise, caught off guard by the child's directness. He glanced toward Liana, who was rushing over, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Marisol," she whispered sharply, but the girl didn't budge. Instead, she stretched out her hand toward Ethan with that same fearless warmth children carried naturally. "Come on. You'll be happier with us." Ethan hesitated, then let out a small breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Something in Marisol's eyes, the way they sparkled with kindness, cut through the fog he carried. Slowly, he rose from his seat, his movements deliberate, and followed her toward Liana. "I'm so sorry," Liana began, her voice a mix of apology and awkward laughter. "She can be persistent." Ethan shook his head lightly, a faint smile tugging at his lips for the first time in months. "It's all right. She's right. It's better not to sit alone." His tone was low, almost fragile, as if unused to casual conversation. Liana gestured toward the empty seat beside them, and he sat down, careful not to intrude too much. As the graduates' names were called, Ethan found himself drawn into their small circle. Marisol leaned close, whispering excited commentary about the decorations, the speeches, and how she couldn't wait until it was her turn to wear the cap and gown. Her words made Ethan chuckle softly, the sound foreign to his own ears. Liana noticed the change in his expression and felt something stir inside her, an instinct telling her there was more to this man than what met the eye. Still, she held back, not wanting to pry, not wanting to assume. When Camille finally crossed the stage, Marisol jumped up and cheered with all the energy her little body could hold. Ethan clapped too, his applause blending with theirs, but in his heart, a pang of grief pressed forward. He remembered his own daughter, how she might have been crossing a stage like this if not for the cruel twist of fate that had stolen her and his wife away. His chest tightened, but when Marisol looked up at him with her wide smile, he forced the ache down. For a brief, fleeting moment, it felt like being part of a family again. After the ceremony, as families spilled outside to take photos and share hugs, Liana turned toward him, unsure if she should say more or let him walk away. Ethan seemed to sense her hesitation and offered his hand. "Thank you for letting me sit with you," he said sincerely. "It meant more than you know." Liana shook his hand, her grip gentle but firm. "You're welcome. I'm glad Marisol convinced you." Marisol beamed between them, completely unaware of the delicate string she had just tied that connected their worlds. Ethan walked back to his sleek black car, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. He paused for a moment before getting in, glancing back at Liana and Marisol laughing together in the crowd. A strange warmth lingered in his chest, foreign but not unwelcome. He told himself it was nothing, just a passing encounter. Yet as he drove away, their laughter echoed in his ears, and for the first time in years, the silence of his car didn't feel quite so suffocating. The next week, Ethan found himself replaying that graduation moment more often than he expected. The image of Marisol's bright eyes and Liana's gentle smile returned to him in quiet hours, softening the edges of his grief. He told himself it was only chance, a fleeting kindness, yet his heart nudged otherwise. So when he spotted Liana and Marisol again at a local pizzeria on a Saturday evening, Marisol proudly sprinkling cheese on her slice, while Liana laughed, he hesitated only briefly before walking over. Marisol was the first to notice. "Hey, it's the man from graduation," she squealed, waving both hands as if greeting a long-lost friend. Liana looked up, surprised but not displeased. Ethan offered a polite smile. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just saw you here." Liana gestured toward the empty seat across from them. "You're not intruding. Sit." The invitation felt natural, and Ethan slid into the booth. They shared slices and easy conversation, the kind that didn't feel forced. Marisol entertained them both with stories about her teacher who wore mismatched socks and her dream of becoming a marine biologist. "So I can swim with dolphins every day," she explained with all the certainty of a child. Ethan chuckled. "That sounds like a good plan. Much better than my job." Marisol's head tilted. "What's your job?" He paused, then softened his answer. "I make decisions for companies. But your dream sounds a lot more fun." What started with pizza grew into more. A week later, Ethan invited them to the city aquarium. Marisol pressed her face to the glass, squealing each time a shark or stingray drifted past. Liana walked beside Ethan, noticing the way he knelt to Marisol's level, answering her endless questions with patience and humor. "Do fish get bored swimming in circles?" she asked. "Probably," he replied. "But at least they don't have homework." Liana laughed, a sound that felt like sunlight breaking through her own guarded clouds. For the first time in years, she wasn't carrying the weight of everything alone. The outings continued an afternoon at the Science Museum, a walk through the park, even quiet evenings at Liana's small apartment where Ethan learned the art of making dinosaur-shaped pancakes under Marisol's strict supervision. "No, the tail has to be bigger," she insisted, and he obeyed, laughing when his creations came out lopsided. Slowly, Ethan slipped into a rhythm with them, not as a guest, but as something more. He found himself looking forward to Marisol's silly knock-knock jokes, and the way Liana's eyes crinkled when she smiled. Yet, beneath the laughter, shadows lingered. One night, after putting Marisol to bed, Liana sat at the kitchen table, her face pale with worry. Ethan noticed the unopened medical bills stacked neatly beside her. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then sighed. "Marisol was born with a heart condition. The doctors say she'll need surgery soon." Ethan's chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" She shook her head. "Because it's not your problem. You've already done too much for us. People would think I'm using you." Her words carried years of pride and fear, but Ethan reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "Liana, this isn't about money. It's about family. And whether you believe it or not, you're becoming mine." His words unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. She wanted to trust him, but her past taught her to build walls. Trusting meant risking heartbreak, and she had promised herself never to let Marisol suffer from misplaced faith. Ethan, however, wasn't one to retreat. He began attending Marisol's school events, cheering louder than anyone when she performed in her play. He brought flowers for her afterward, presenting them with a dramatic bow that made her giggle. Teachers whispered about the mysterious man who suddenly appeared in their lives, always dressed impeccably, yet blending seamlessly into the role of a proud father figure. The storms came harder when Ethan's family found out. His mother, Eleanor, invited him to dinner at the family estate. Her tone clipped on the phone. "We need to discuss your choices," she said. His brother, Adrian, wasted no time voicing his disdain. "A single mother with a sick child? Do you realize how this looks? You're supposed to carry the Carlyle name with dignity." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Dignity doesn't mean loneliness." Eleanor's eyes flashed. "You've lost so much already. Don't chain yourself to someone who will only bring more sorrow." Ethan stood, his voice steady but cold. "I'd rather face sorrow with them than face empty halls alone." He left the dinner early, his heart pounding, but his resolve stronger than ever. Still, their disapproval weighed heavily on Liana when she heard about it. Maybe they're right, she told him quietly one night. You deserve someone who fits into your world. Not me. Not us. Ethan cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Liana, you and Marisol are my world. Nothing else matters. His conviction both frightened and comforted her. When Marisol's surgery date finally arrived, the hospital waiting room became their battleground of emotions. Liana clutched Ethan's hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. He whispered reassurances, reminding her to breathe, reminding her that Marisol was strong. Hours stretched painfully, each tick of the clock a new trial. At last, the surgeon emerged with a tired but relieved smile. The surgery was a success. She'll need recovery time, but she's going to be okay. Tears spilled down Liana's cheeks as Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her as though he'd never let go. In those moments, the storms tested them, but also carved out something unbreakable. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt like he belonged not to an empire of glass towers, but to something real, fragile, and infinitely more precious. Liana, despite her fears, began to see that his love wasn't a burden but a shelter. And as Marisol woke up, groggy but smiling faintly, whispering, "Did I do good, Mom?" Ethan answered before Liana could. "You did amazing, kiddo. You're the bravest girl I know." The weeks after Marisol's surgery brought a tender calm into their lives. Recovery was slow but steady, and Ethan became a constant presence in their small apartment, arriving early with groceries and leaving late after helping Marisol with homework. He learned how to braid her clumsy hair at first, but got better with practice, and he carried her gently when her energy waned, whispering jokes to keep her spirits high. Liana watched him, her heart caught between gratitude and disbelief. She had built her life on being self-sufficient, yet here was a man who insisted on sharing her burdens, turning them into something lighter. But the world outside their bubble remained less forgiving. Invitations to events began to trickle in, each one laced with the silent expectation that Ethan would appear with someone deemed suitable. When he insisted on bringing Liana, the whispers began before they even walked through the grand doors of the gala hall. Eyes turned, assessing her simple dress, her modest jewelry, and the way she held Marisol's hand as though protecting her from a storm. Eleanor, radiant in her diamond necklace, greeted them with a stiff smile that carried no warmth. Adrian's smirk lingered at the edge of the crowd. The evening grew heavier with each whispered judgment. Liana tried to excuse herself, to spare Ethan the embarrassment she felt radiating from every corner of the room. But Ethan would not let her retreat. As the MC announced his name, inviting him to speak, he walked to the stage with deliberate steps, the room falling into silence. He adjusted the microphone, scanning the sea of faces, powerful allies, critical eyes, and the family that doubted him. "I've spent years building companies, attending dinners like this, and keeping up appearances," he began, his voice firm, yet carrying a tremor of emotion. "But tonight, I want to talk about something real. This is Liana." His hand gestured toward her, where she stood frozen beside Marisol. "And this is Marisol. They are my family. They are my joy. And if anyone here thinks they are unworthy, then it is your vision that is clouded, not mine." The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling like waves. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, but Ethan pressed on. "I will not allow anyone, even those closest to me, to make them feel small. Love is not measured by wealth or titles. It's measured by laughter shared over burnt pancakes, by holding hands through surgery, by the courage of a child who teaches you how to hope again. That is the family I stand with. That is the love I choose." The applause began hesitantly, then grew louder, filling the hall. Some clapped out of respect, others out of genuine admiration. Liana's throat tightened as tears pricked her eyes. Marisol clapped too, completely unaware of the magnitude of what had just happened but delighted that everyone seemed to be cheering for them. Ethan stepped down from the stage, moving straight to their side, his hand finding Liana's with unshakable certainty. "I meant every word," he whispered. That night became a turning point. Though Eleanor did not openly approve, her stance softened in the weeks that followed. She visited Marisol during her recovery, bringing books and gentle questions, her icy exterior thawing slowly. Adrian remained skeptical, but his voice carried less weight as Ethan's conviction stood unshaken. For Liana, the change was overwhelming. She had spent years shielding her daughter from disappointment, from a world quick to judge, but now she began to believe in something she had long buried, the possibility of a love that didn't demand she stand alone. Ethan's proposal came quietly, without the spectacle of flashing cameras or glittering rings at a gala. It was a simple evening in their living room. Marisol sprawled on the rug coloring dinosaurs, while Liana folded laundry. Ethan sat beside her, his hand brushing against hers as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Liana," he said softly, "I don't want to just visit your world. I want to live in it, every day, with you and Marisol. Will you marry me?" Her hands trembled, the neatly folded shirt slipping from her grasp. For a long moment, she searched his eyes, afraid of everything this meant, and yet unable to deny the love shining there. Tears filled her vision as she nodded, whispering, "Yes." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and before she could steady her breath, Marisol bounced up from the floor, squealing, "Does this mean I get to call you Dad now?" Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding both mother and daughter close. "Yes," he whispered, "if you'll have me." Their wedding was not grand, nor did they want it to be. It was held in a small garden, sunlight streaming through the branches, wildflowers framing the simple wooden arch. Friends gathered, neighbors who had seen their love grow, and even Eleanor stood near the front, her expression softer than anyone expected. Marisol wore a pale yellow dress and carried a basket of daisies, walking proudly between Ethan and Liana as though she were giving them away. When the vows were spoken, it was not only a promise between two adults, but a binding of three hearts. As Ethan and Liana kissed, Marisol clapped loudly, shouting, "Finally!" The guests laughed, but in that laughter was something profound, a recognition that family was not defined by status or bloodline, but by the love that people chose to fight for. And as the evening drew to a close, with music drifting softly and plates of homemade food shared around wooden tables, Ethan realized that for the first time since his loss, his home was no longer empty. It was here, in the warmth of their laughter, in the hand that held his, in the child who called him Dad. Moral lesson: love does not always appear in the places we expect, nor does it fit neatly into the boxes others design for us. True family is built on acceptance, patience, and the courage to choose connection even when it feels risky. Ethan, Liana, and Marisol remind us that healing is possible, that joy can return after sorrow, and that worth is not measured by wealth or titles, but by how deeply we love and protect one another. If this story touched you, please like the video, subscribe, share with friends, and comment on the lessons you carry from it.